Christmas Eve was supposed to be a peaceful night. Instead, it turned into a place where people died. A team of Navy SEALs walked right into a perfect trap. Their leader was bleeding badly on the sandy ground. There was no help coming from the sky. There was no way to escape. Then the gunfire began. It was careful, hidden, and seemed impossible. Enemy fighters fell down without seeing who shot them. The team made it out alive, but no one ever learned her name. She disappeared before the sun came up, leaving behind only quiet and a life she had saved. Years later, when luck brought them face to face again, the SEAL commander finally understood something important. The woman who saved him that night was never supposed to disappear forever. She was supposed to come back. The cold desert air came down like a sharp blade. Lieutenant Commander Nathan Cross pressed his gloved hand against the stone wall. He looked through his night vision goggles at the narrow valley ahead. It was 10 o'clock at night. Christmas Eve did not mean anything out here. It was just another day on the calendar that kept turning while men died in places their families could not even find on a map. His team moved behind him. 8 trained soldiers spread themselves out along the ridgeline. They were going to rescue a very important person who had secret information. This person was hiding in a building 3 miles to the north. The mission briefing said it was low risk. The important person had given them locations, times, and where the enemies would be. Everything looked good on paper, but everything felt wrong. Nathan had learned to trust that feeling during his 14 years in the Navy's Special Forces. The hair standing up on his neck, the tightness in his chest, the way the shadows seemed to be holding their breath. He raised a closed fist. The team stopped moving right away. "Cross, we are on time," Petty Officer Marcus Bennett whispered to the radio. "The person we are rescuing is waiting. We only have 15 minutes left." Nathan studied the valley carefully. Smooth walls, natural narrow points, perfect spots to shoot from high places. If he wanted to kill a team moving through here, this was exactly where he would do it. "Hold your position," he said quietly. "Send the drone ahead." Static noise crackled in his ear. This was not normal interference. Someone was blocking their signals. The drone's video feed died before it went 50 meters. Nathan's jaw got tight. They were already inside the danger zone. "Back out," he ordered. "Move now." The first shots came from 3 directions at the same time. Gun flashes lit up the ridges like camera flashes at a concert. It was a planned attack designed to trap them in the open. Nathan dropped behind a rock as bullets cracked overhead. The sound was sharp enough to feel like it could break bones. Enemy on the left. Enemy on the right. Enemy behind us. Bennett's voice stayed calm even though everything was crazy. Training beats panic. Always. Nathan shot back toward the eastern ridge. He fired in short, controlled bursts meant to keep the enemy's heads down, not necessarily to hit them. The math was simple and harsh. 8 soldiers against 30 or more enemy fighters who had the high ground and prepared positions. No air support because the signal blocking cut their satellite connection. No backup team close enough to help. The mission had been a trap from the very beginning. He pressed his radio button. "Everyone, fall back to meeting point Charlie. Move in pairs with covering fire." The team started moving backward. 2 men shooting while 2 moved. They stayed organized even as the enemy got closer. They made it 20 meters before the mortars started falling. The first explosion hit 30 feet to Nathan's left, showering him with rocks and sand. The second was closer. The enemy was adjusting their aim with each shot, getting more accurate. Nathan dove behind a group of boulders. When he looked up, he saw Petty Officer Jake Morrison dragging Chief Samuel Rodriguez toward cover. Rodriguez's leg was torn open below the knee. His blood looked black in the starlight. Morrison had him under the shoulders, moving backward, shooting with one hand at the shadows. Then Morrison's head snapped back. He dropped without making a sound. A clean shot through the side of his head. Rodriguez hit the ground hard, unable to move, completely exposed. Nathan was running before he even thought about it. He sprinted across open ground with bullets kicking up dirt at his feet. He grabbed Rodriguez's vest and pulled. Rodriguez screamed. Nathan pulled harder, his boots slipping on loose stones, his arms burning from dragging a 200-pound man in full gear. He made it behind the boulder just as another mortar exploded where they had been lying. His ears were ringing. His vision was blurry. He checked Rodriguez's pulse. It was weak, but there. He started wrapping a tight bandage around the badly hurt leg. "Stay with me, Chief," Nathan said. Rodriguez's eyes rolled. He was going into shock fast. Bennett's voice came through the radio, tight with controlled fear. "Commander, we are trapped. We cannot reach you. They are moving to surround us." Nathan looked at the ridgeline. Figures were moving along the edge, dark shapes against the stars. They would be at his position in just a few minutes. He had maybe 15 bullets left. Rodriguez had passed out. Morrison was gone. He thought about the promise he had made to his wife before leaving. "Come home safe," Lauren had said, her hand on his chest where his heart was beating fast. "Whatever it takes, just come home." Nathan loaded a fresh magazine and got ready to break that promise. The enemy fire got heavier. They were no longer just trying to keep his head down. They were trying to finish the job. Nathan counted 6 different places where enemies were shooting from. Each one was organized and disciplined. This was not a random attack. This was a planned killing. He fired 3 shots at a gun flash on the northern ridge, then ducked as return fire chipped the rock beside his head. Rodriguez groaned, half awake. Nathan checked the bandage. Still tight, still bleeding. "Commander, we are moving to your position," Bennett said. 30 seconds. "No," Nathan replied. "Hold where you are. They want you to move. Do not give them an easy shot." A mortar screamed overhead. Nathan covered Rodriguez with his body as the explosion tore through the air 50 feet away. Pieces of metal pinged off the stones. Something hot scratched Nathan's shoulder, burning through his clothes. He ignored it. Then, for 3 seconds, the shooting stopped. Not a break in fighting. Not a pause to reload. It was a silence before the final attack, when fighters check their weapons and get ready to move forward. Nathan had heard this silence before. In Ramadi and Helmand, and a dozen other places where the night turned red with blood. He looked at Rodriguez, unconscious now, pale in the starlight. He looked at Morrison's body, crumpled in the open where Nathan could not reach it. He thought about Bennett and the others, trapped and waiting for the end. His radio crackled. Not Bennett. Not anyone from his team. A woman's voice, calm as winter frost. "Stay down. Do not move." Nathan froze. The voice was not coming through normal military channels. Someone had connected directly to their radio frequency, getting past every security system. That should have been impossible. "Who is this?" he demanded. No answer. Just that voice again. "Stay down." Then a single shot cracked across the valley. One of the enemy fighters on the northern ridge dropped. He did not stumble. He did not fall wounded. He dropped like a puppet whose strings had been cut, dead before his knees hit the stone. Nathan had seen enough deaths to recognize the work. Center of the chest, clean entry wound. The kind of shot that required training, good equipment, and steady nerves. Another shot, another body. Eastern ridge this time. A fighter who had been moving to surround Bennett's position. The man spun and fell, his weapon clattering down the slope. Nathan scanned the ridges with his night vision, looking for the shooter. Nothing. No gun flash, no heat signature. Whoever was shooting had hiding so good, they were invisible even to military equipment. A third shot, a fourth. Each one killed cleanly, exactly, without warning. The enemy fighters began to panic. They shot wildly at shadows, unable to find where the bullets were coming from. Nathan could hear them yelling, their orders falling apart into confusion. "Commander, what is happening?" Bennett's voice was sharp with adrenaline. "Someone is helping us," Nathan said. "Stay in cover. Let them work." 5 more shots came quickly, one after another. 5 more deaths. The enemy's organized attack fell apart into chaos. They were no longer moving forward. They were running away, scrambling for cover, trying to escape from a hunter they could not see. Nathan watched the mortar team on the western ridge get ready to fire. Before they could drop the shell, the gunner's head jerked back. The helper turned to run. Another shot. He made it 3 steps. Silence returned. Not the silence before an attack. The silence after one. Bodies lay scattered across the ridges. At least 15 that Nathan could see. The rest of the enemy fighters had disappeared into the darkness, running, no longer wanting to fight a battle they could not understand. Nathan's radio crackled again. That same voice, still calm, still cold. You have 10 minutes before they come back together. Move now. Meeting Point Charlie is not safe anymore. Go south to Map Point November 734. There's a dry riverbed. Follow it east. Who are you? Nathan demanded. Someone who has been here longer than you. Move. The radio went silent. Nathan thought for exactly 2 seconds, weighing trust against survival. Then he pressed his radio button. Everyone, new meeting point. Map Point November 734. Going south. Move in 2-man teams. I am carrying Rodriguez. Bennett, you lead the way. Got it. Commander. Who was that on the radio? I do not know, Nathan said, but they just saved our lives. 3 days earlier, Captain Elena Reyes had arrived in the valley alone. No support team, no base camp, no plan to get picked up. Just her rifle, her gear, and a folder containing secret information that had cost 2 spies their lives to get. The folder said an ambush was being prepared. It did not say who the target was or when the attack would happen, only where. Elena had been a sniper for 11 years, first with the Marine Corps, then with a unit that worked in places where official records did not exist. She had confirmed kills across 4 continents, most of them at distances, so far she had to account for the Earth spinning. She was good at her job because she understood that being a sniper was not about pulling a trigger. It was about preparation, patience, and making one shot matter more than 1,000 bullets fired in panic. She had set up on the southern ridge, 2 kilometers from a valley floor. She spent 2 days building her hiding spot, rocks and sand arranged to break up her shape. Camouflage netting that matched the ground color exactly. A position with clear views to every path someone could take. Enough hiding that heat-detecting cameras would see her as just another cold rock. She watched the enemy fighters arrive on the second day. They moved with confidence, setting up shooting positions along the ridges, placing mortars, creating fields of fire that would turn the valley into a death trap. Professional work, disciplined. They knew they were waiting for, even if Elena did not. On the 3rd day, she saw the SEAL team enter the valley. 8 soldiers moving in standard formation. Careful, but not careful enough. They did not know what was waiting for them. Elena tracked the team leader through her scope. A tall man with the relaxed posture of someone who had done this work 1,000 times. She read his rank markings. Lieutenant Commander. Young for that position. That meant talent or luck. Probably both. She watched him raise his fist to stop the team. Good instincts. Not good enough. The trap had already been sprung. The enemy had let them walk deep into the valley before opening fire. They cut off any escape and forced them into the open where mortars could do their work. Elena had trained herself to stay calm and distant during missions. Feelings hurt accuracy. Hesitation meant death, usually for the person you were trying to protect. But watching the SEAL team get hurt, watching them fight a battle they could not win, she felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. She saw the team leader run across open ground to pull his wounded teammate to safety. Brave. Stupid. Both. The man dragged his teammate behind cover just as a mortar exploded where they had been lying. He should have been dead. Luck was the only reason he was not. Elena made a decision that would change her life, though she did not know it yet. She connected to the team's radio frequency, getting past military security with equipment that officially did not exist. She told them to stay down. Then she went to work. Her rifle was a custom-built Macmillan TAC 338. It used special bullets that could punch through body armor at 2,000 meters. She had adjusted it 3 days ago, accounting for wind, temperature, and the slight height difference between her position and the targets. Every detail checked. Every calculation verified. She placed the crosshairs on the enemy team leader, a man directing fire from a northern ridge. Distance, 1,800 meters. Wind, 3 kilometers per hour from the east. She adjusted her aim 2 millimeters to the right. She accounted for how much the bullet would drop. She breathed out slowly and squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked against her shoulder. Through the scope, she saw the man drop. Clean kill. She loaded another bullet and moved to the next target. Elena did not work fast. Speed created mistakes, and mistakes at this distance meant missing completely or hitting the wrong person. She worked carefully, choosing important targets first. The mortar teams, the fighters giving orders, anyone with a radio or leadership markings. She took apart their command structure one shot at a time, forcing them into chaos, breaking their teamwork. After 15 kills, the enemy began to run away. Elena let them go. Her mission was not to count bodies. It was survival for the team in the valley. And they had survived. She radioed directions to their escape route, a path she had checked that would take them away from likely ambush spots. Then she watched through her scope as they moved out. The team leader carrying his wounded teammate, moving slowly but alive. When they were clear, Elena took apart her rifle, packed her gear, and began the long walk back to where she had started. She did not call for pickup. She preferred to move alone, on foot, invisible. It took her 18 hours to reach the safe house. No one saw her arrive. No one saw her leave. The mission report she wrote 3 days later was so secret that most generals did not have permission to read it. It said only that enemy forces in the valley had been stopped and that no friendly soldiers were killed. It did not mention the SEAL team. It did not mention names. Elena did not expect to ever see those soldiers again. In her line of work, you saved people without them ever knowing you existed. That was the point. That was the rule. But sometimes rules break. Nathan Cross did not sleep for 36 hours after the ambush. His team made it to the dry riverbed. They followed it east to a pickup spot where helicopters got them out under the cover of darkness. Rodriguez survived long enough to reach the hospital. Morrison did not make it home. His family received a flag and a story that explained nothing. The meeting to talk about what happened took place in a room with no windows. 3 officers Nathan did not recognize were there. They asked about the ambush, the people who died, and the unknown sniper who had saved his team. Nathan told them everything. They took notes, asked questions to make things clearer, and gave nothing back. Do we know who helped us? Nathan asked at the end of the meeting. The senior officer, a colonel with a face like carved stone, shook his head. No friendly units were in that area. We are looking into it. She knew our radio frequency. She knew the land. She had equipment that does not exist on any list I have seen. That is not random. We are looking into it, the colonel repeated. You can go now, Commander. Nathan left the room with more questions and answers. He wrote his own report, detailed and exact. He described every shot he had witnessed. 15 confirmed kills at distances that required amazing skill. 0 friendly soldiers hurt by the help. Professional shooting done under battle conditions that would shake most shooters. Whoever she was. She had worked alone, without support, in enemy territory for long enough to set up a perfect hiding spot and gather information on enemy positions. That suggested training at a level few military units ever reached. It suggested someone who had done this work before many times in many places. Like a legend, Bennett had called her over drinks 2 weeks later. They were both back at the base, trying to understand what had happened. Like something out of a war story. Ghost sniper saves the day. Disappears without a trace. She was real, Nathan had said. I heard her voice. I saw what she did. Real as ghosts get, Bennett replied. That was not comforting, but it was honest. Nathan kept the memory close. The voice on the radio. The exactness of those shots. The way she had known exactly what to do and when to do it. She had saved his life and the lives of his men, then disappeared like smoke in the wind. He wanted to thank her. He wanted to know her name. He never learned either. 6 months later, Nathan returned to the United States. He received a Navy Cross for what he did during the ambush. There was a ceremony where his wife pinned the medal to his chest while photographers took pictures. The official words mentioned extraordinary bravery under fire. They did not mention the sniper who made that bravery possible. Lauren kissed him after the ceremony, her lips warm against his cheek. I am proud of you, she said. I did not do it alone, Nathan replied. But he could not explain more because the mission was secret and the woman who saved him was a ghost. He wore the medal because it was expected. He carried a memory because it was true. Elena Reyes had faced death before. In Helmand, a Taliban fighter had trapped a position with a machine gun while she lay flat in a ditch. Bullets chewed through mud just inches from her head. In Somalia, an ambush had killed her partner and left her alone in enemy territory for 3 days. She moved only at night, drinking water from puddles, waiting for rescue that almost did not come. She had learned that fear was just chemicals. Adrenaline and cortisol flooding the brain, demanding action. She had learned to recognize it, accept it, and set it aside like a tool she did not need right now. Panic was something only people who could afford to make mistakes could have. Elena could not afford mistakes. But watching the SEAL commander drag his wounded teammate to safety, watching him cover the man with his own body as mortars rained down, Elena had felt something different. Not fear, recognition. She saw herself in that moment. All the time she had stayed focused on her target, while the world exploded around her. All the time she had chosen the mission over her own safety, because someone's life depended on her making the shot. The commander was going to die if she did nothing. His team was going to die. They had walked into a trap that should have been spotted, should have been avoided. Now, they were paying the price for mistakes that were not their fault. Elena had made her decision in the space between heartbeats. She connected to their radio, gave them instructions, and started shooting. 15 targets killed in under 10 minutes. Not her fastest work, but clean, good enough. As the SEAL team began their escape, Elena tracked Commander through her scope. He was moving slowly, carrying a wounded man, easy to hit for any fighter who had not run away. She kept her crosshairs on him, covering his movement, ready to shoot any threat. He stopped once, near a group of rocks, and looked up toward the southern ridge, directly at her position. He could not see her, not at this distance, not with her hiding, but it felt like he was looking into her eyes, like he knew exactly where she was. Elena had stayed still. She did not move, did not react. He could not know she was there, but he raised one hand briefly, a gesture that could have been adjusting his rifle strap, or could have been acknowledgement. Thank you, without words, across 2 kilometers of empty air. Then he continued moving, and Elena forced herself to look away. Getting attached was dangerous. Feelings hurt decision-making. She had saved his life because the mission required it, not because of who he was. That was the line she had always kept. She repeated that to herself as she packed her gear, as she walked 18 hours back to the safe house, as she wrote her report and accepted her next assignment without question. But sometimes, late at night when she could not sleep, Elena wondered what would have happened if she had stayed, if she had shown herself, if she had walked down from her ridge and introduced herself to the man whose life she had saved. She never did. That was not how her world worked. Ghost snipers stayed ghosts. Legends remained legends. People like her did not get happy endings. They got the next mission, and the one after that, until eventually a mission went wrong, and they did not come back. Elena accepted this. She had no family waiting, no close friends, no ties to any place or person. The work was enough. It had always been enough, until it was not. Nathan Cross spent 3 years trying to find her. Not in a crazy way, not openly, but every time he went to a meeting about special missions in the Middle East, every time he read intelligence reports, every time he spoke with other soldiers who had worked in that region, he asked the same question. Have you ever heard of a female sniper working alone? Long-range shooting, top-level skill, ghost rules. Most people shook their heads. A few offered rumors, stories that sounded like myths. A woman who had turned a battle in Kandahar with 12 shots fired from an impossible distance. A private soldier who had disappeared after finishing a mission that should have needed a full team. Legends, all of them. Nothing solid. Bennett, who had become a captain and was still Nathan's closest friend in the teams, called him out on it over drinks one night in Virginia Beach. You need to let it go, Bennett said. Whoever she was, she is gone. Probably dead by now. People who work like that do not live long. She saved our lives, Nathan replied, and we are grateful, but you cannot chase ghosts, Cross. Not forever. Nathan knew Bennett was right. He also knew he could not stop. She had been real. She had spoken to him. She had saved him when death was certain. That meant something. It had to. His marriage ended 2 years after the ambush. Not because of the sniper. Not directly. But the distance between Nathan and Lauren had grown too wide to cross. He came back from missions changed, quieter, haunted by memories he could not share. She tried to reach him. He tried to let her. Neither one succeeded. The divorce was peaceful. No yelling. No lawyers fighting over things they owned. Just two people who loved each other admitting they could not close the gap between who they had been and who they had become. "I hope you find what you're looking for," Lauren said when she signed the papers. Whatever it is, Nathan did not tell her he was looking for a ghost. He did not tell her about the voice on the radio or the woman who had disappeared like smoke. Lauren deserved better than explanations that sounded like excuses. He threw himself into work. Promotions came. Commander became captain. More responsibility, more missions, more assignments that blurred together in his memory. He was good at his job. He was also alone in ways that had nothing to do with being single. The years developed a pattern. 3 months away on missions. 2 months home, planning operations in air-conditioned offices. Then carrying them out in deserts and mountains where the temperature changed 40 degrees between day and night. Nathan led teams through dangerous territory. He made decisions that saved lives or ended them. He wrote reports that would be kept secret for decades. He was respected. His men trusted him. His bosses valued his judgment. But respect and trust were not the same as connection. Nathan could share a tent with a teammate for weeks, face death together, pull each other through impossible situations, and still never know the man's first child's name or whether he liked coffee or tea. The loneliness was a low hum beneath everything, constant but easy to ignore when there was work to do. It was only in the quiet moments that Nathan felt the full weight of what he had given up, lying in his bed on a transport plane, sitting alone in a hotel room between missions, walking through an airport and seeing families hug each other. He dated sometimes, women he met at work events or through friends they had in common, conversations over dinner that felt like practice performances, second dates that went nowhere because Nathan could not explain where he had been or what he had done, third dates that never happened because he was leaving again, always leaving. One woman, a teacher named Sarah, had lasted 4 months. She was patient, understanding, willing to accept the long times apart and the things Nathan could not talk about. But patience has limits. After he missed her birthday because of a sudden mission to East Africa, she told him she could not do this anymore. "I care about you," Sarah had said, her voice thick with tears. "But you are not really here. Even when you are standing in front of me, you are somewhere else. I cannot compete with that." Nathan had not argued. She was right. Part of him was still in that valley, still bleeding in the sand, still hearing that voice on the radio telling him to stay down. He could not leave it behind. He was not sure he wanted to. Meanwhile, Elena Reyes continued her work. More valleys, more targets, more nights sleeping in hiding spots carved from rock and sand. She worked in Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, places where her being there was never written down, and her missions were too secret for anyone to know about. She saved lives, dozens of them, soldiers who never knew she existed, pilots who made a home because she killed anti-aircraft crews before they could fire, ground teams who walked through ambush areas made safe by her rifle. Each mission followed the same pattern. Intelligence would identify a threat. Elena would go in alone, usually at night, carrying 70 pounds of gear across land that would break most soldiers. She would find position, sometimes hiking for days to reach the perfect hiding spot. Then she would wait, motionless, for hours or days, until the moment came to take the shot. The waiting was the hardest part, not the physical discomfort of lying still in extreme temperatures, not the mental discipline of staying focused through tiredness and hunger. The waiting was hard because it left time to think. And thinking led to questions Elena could not answer. Why was she doing this? Originally, it had been simple. She was good at it. The military needed people who could do what she did. The work mattered. Saving American lives, protecting national security, making the world safer, one bullet at a time. But after 11 years, after hundreds of targets killed, after sleeping in more countries than most people visited in a lifetime, Elena had begun to wonder if any of it made a difference. For every enemy commander she killed, 3 more stepped up to take his place. For every ambush she prevented, another one succeeded somewhere else. The war never ended. It just moved. She had lost count of her confirmed kills after reaching 200. The number was meaningless. Each one was a person with a family, a history, a life that ended because Elena squeezed a trigger. She told herself they were threats, that they would have killed Americans if given the chance. That was true. It was also not the whole story. Elena had seen what her work left behind once, years ago. A convoy had been ambushed. She had killed 7 fighters from nearly a mile away. Exact shots that ended the fight in under 3 minutes. Later, when the area was safe, she had walked through the site. Bodies lay where they had fallen. One man had a photograph in his pocket, wife and children smiling at the camera. Elena had looked at that photograph for a long time before folding it carefully and placing it back where she had found it. She did not look at the results of her work after that. Better to keep the distance. Better to see targets through a scope far away, where they were shapes rather than people, objects rather than lives. Better to do the job and move on before the human side of it caught up with her. But the SEAL commander had been different, watching him risk everything to save his teammate, seeing him refuse to leave a man behind even when survival meant abandoning him. Elena had been reminded of why the work mattered, not because of politics or national security, because of people who were worth saving, because courage existed, and sometimes protecting it meant pulling a trigger from 2 kilometers away. She had thought about him often in the years that followed, not romantically, not at first, but she wondered if he had survived the war, if he had made it home to whatever family was waiting, if he remembered that night, or if it had become just another close call in a career full of them. None of them knew her name. That was on purpose. That was the rule. Ghost snipers worked outside normal chains of command, reporting only to handlers who existed in hidden parts of the government. Elena preferred it that way. No recognition meant no expectations. No attachments meant no losses when missions went wrong. But she thought about the SEAL commander more often than she admitted. His face through her scope, steady despite the chaos. The way he had put his wounded teammate's safety before his own. The gesture he had made. That brief acknowledgement across 2 kilometers. Thank you without words. She wondered if he was alive, if he remembered that night, if he ever thought about the woman who saved him. She would never know. That was the price of being a ghost. You saved people and then you disappeared. They moved on with their lives while you moved on to the next mission. Elena told herself she was fine with that. Most days she believed it. 5 years after the ambush, Nathan Cross made captain and took a job at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado. Office work, strategy, training schedules. He still went on missions, but less often. His assignments involved planning more than doing. He was 42 years old, unmarried, living in a condo that felt more like a hotel room than a home. He ran every morning along the beach, 6 miles before sunrise, a routine that cleared his head and kept the memories away. Mostly, the nightmares came less often now. He could sleep through most nights without seeing Morrison's head snap back, without hearing Rodriguez scream, without feeling the weight of a dying man in his arms. Therapy had helped. Time had helped more. But some memories stayed sharp no matter how many years passed. He thought about the sniper less often, but the thoughts never went away completely. She was a presence in the back of his mind, a question without an answer. He had stopped asking people if they had heard of her. The silence had told him everything. Bennett visited once a year, usually around Christmas, a tradition neither of them talked about out loud. They would drink whiskey and talk about nothing important until Bennett eventually brought up the ambush. Rodriguez is doing well, Bennett said during one visit. Got his medical retirement. Works at a gym now. Married. 2 kids. Says he thinks about that night every time he sees them. We all do, Nathan replied. Morrison's family still has his flag. I visit sometimes. Nathan nodded. He visited too, though less often than he should. Morrison's mother always offered him coffee. They would sit in her kitchen and not talk about her son, because talking made it real, and real was too hard. Do you ever wonder she is still out there? Bennett asked. Nathan did not need to ask who Bennett meant. Every day, he said. Maybe she retired. Maybe she is living somewhere quiet, pretending to be normal. People like that do not retire, Nathan said. They burn out or they die. There is no middle ground. Bennett did not argue. They both knew how the story ended for soldiers who pushed too hard for too long. Elena Reyes had reached the same conclusion 6 months earlier. She was 39 years old, and her body was breaking down in ways that could not be hidden. Her shoulder hurt all the time from years of rifle recoil. Her knees complained every time she climbed into a hiding spot. Her eyes, once perfect, now needed reading glasses for close work. More worrying was a moment in Yemen when she had taken a shot at 800 meters and missed. Not by much. 2 inches left of target. Close enough to wound. Not close enough to kill. The target had lived long enough to call for help. Elena had been forced to escape while being shot at, something that had not happened in 10 years. She had always known there would be a last mission, a moment when her skills got bad enough that continuing became suicide. She had assumed it would end with a bullet, quick and clean, the way Morrison had died. She had not expected to simply become outdated. Her handler had been direct during their final meeting. "You have done amazing work, Captain, but it is time. You know it is." Elena had not argued. Denial was for people who could not face reality. She packed her gear, wrote her final report, and accepted the discharge papers that would never appear in any official record. She moved to Montana, a cabin 40 miles from the nearest town, where silence was thick enough to feel like something solid. She told herself she was fine. She told herself she did not miss the work. She lied to herself every single day. The memorial service was held in November at the Naval Special Warfare Center. 23 soldiers had died during a helicopter crash in Niger. The worst single-day loss the SEAL community had suffered in years. Nathan attended in his dress uniform. He stood among hundreds of other warriors, all of them silent, all of them carrying their own ghosts. The ceremony was dignified and formal. There were speeches about sacrifice and honor, about the price of freedom, and the debt owed to those who paid it. Nathan listened with half his attention. The other half drifted to memories of his own losses. Morrison, Rodriguez's leg, the night in the valley when he should have died. After the ceremony, there was a reception in a building next to the training area. Drinks, quiet conversations, people sharing stories about those who had died. Nathan moved through the crowd, shaking hands, offering kind words, playing the role expected of a senior officer. He was standing near a window when he heard a voice behind him, calm and cold as winter frost. "Stay down. Do not move." Nathan froze. His mind went blank, then flooded with memory. The valley, the ambush, the radio crackle. That exact voice speaking those exact words 5 years ago when death was certain and help came from nowhere. He turned slowly, almost afraid that if he moved too fast, the moment would break apart and he would discover he had imagined it. She stood 10 feet away, wearing a dark suit that looked uncomfortable on her, like armor worn by someone who preferred military gear. Short dark hair, sharp eyes that tracked movement like a hunter, a scar along her jawline, faint but visible. She was beautiful in the way a knife was beautiful, elegant and dangerous. Nathan stared. She stared back, her expression impossible to read. "You," he said, the word barely above a whisper. "Me," she confirmed. 5 years I looked for you. Everyone said you were a ghost. "I was," Elena replied. "I am not anymore." Nathan stepped closer, studying her face, saving it to memory in case this moment disappeared. She did not step back. She did not flinch. She held his gaze with the same steadiness he had seen through a scope when he looked up at the southern ridge. "Why are you here?" he asked. "One of the men who died was my partner 10 years ago. Before I started working alone, I owed him this. You saved my life, my team's lives. I never got to thank you. You are welcome," Elena said simply. Nathan wanted to say more, but words felt like they were not enough. How do you thank someone for giving you back your life? How do you explain what it means to be saved by a person you never knew existed? "Can I buy you a drink?" he asked instead. Elena hesitated. Nathan could see the thinking in her eyes, weighing risk against reward, past against present. Then she nodded once. A decision made. "One drink," she said. They left the reception together, walking out into the cool November evening. Nathan led her to a quiet bar off the military base, a place where soldiers went when they wanted to drink without being bothered. They sat in a corner booth. Nathan ordered whiskey. Elena ordered water. "I stopped drinking years ago," she explained. It messes with accuracy. You are not working anymore, Nathan observed. Old habits, Elena replied. They sat in silence for a moment. Nathan studied her face, looking for the woman who had saved him. She was there, behind the guarded expression, behind the wall she had built to survive her work. Why did you help us that night? Nathan asked. You did not know who we were. We could have been anyone. I was there for the ambush, not for you specifically. Intelligence said something was being planned. I got there early, waited. When you walked into it, I made a choice. You saved us. I did my job. Elena said, that was more than a job. 15 kills in 10 minutes. Working alone, no support. That was extraordinary. Elena looked at him for a long moment. You ran across open ground to save your teammate. Mortars were falling. You should have died. That was extraordinary, too. I did what needed to be done, Nathan said. So did I, Elena replied. Nathan smiled. We are both terrible at accepting thanks. Comes with the work, Elena said. For the first time, he saw something that might have been the start of a smile. They talked for 3 hours. Not about the ambush. Not about the war. They talked about what came after. About the silence that followed combat. The difficulty of sleeping in beds that felt too soft. The strange guilt of surviving when others did not. Elena told him about Montana. About the cabin where she lived alone. About waking up every morning and having to remind herself that she no longer needed to check for danger. Nathan told her about Coronado. About running on the beach before sunrise. About the condo that never felt like home. They were both hurt in ways that regular people could not understand. They both carried memories that would never fully fade. And sitting across from each other in that quiet bar, they both recognized something they had been missing for years. Understanding. The breakfast the next morning lasted 4 hours. They sat in a corner booth at the diner on Orange Avenue. They drank coffee that grew cold while they talked. Elena told Nathan about her first kill. A Taliban commander in Helmand province who had been organizing attacks on Marine patrols. She had been 26, newly trained, nervous despite all her practice. The shot had been clean at 1,100 meters. She had thrown up afterward, adrenaline and moral weight combining to overwhelm her. Nathan told her about his first combat mission to Iraq, about clearing houses in Fallujah with enemies hiding in every shadow. About the moment he realized that all his training could not prepare him for the reality of someone trying to kill him. He had been 23, a young officer, fresh from training. He had been terrified every single day for 6 months. They talked about fear, about how it never really went away. It just became familiar enough to work through, about the difference between courage and recklessness, and how that line got blurry when people were depending on you, about the weight of decisions made in fractions of seconds that carried results for lifetimes. When Elena finally had to leave for a flight, Nathan walked her to the rental car return. They stood in the parking lot, surrounded by the normal sounds of a regular world that felt foreign to both of them. Can I call you? Nathan asked. Elena pulled a small notebook from her pocket, wrote a number, and handed it to him. That is a cell phone I actually answer, she said. I change numbers a lot, force of habit. But I will keep this one working for a while. I will call tonight, Nathan promised. I would like that, Elena said. He did call that night, and the next night, and the night after that. Their conversation stretched long into the early morning hours. Pacific time bleeding into mountain time. Both of them unable to hang up, unwilling to return to the silence that had defined their lives for so long. They talked about everything and nothing. Books they had read during downtime between missions, movies they had watched on laptops at bases far from home, the music they listened to when they could not sleep, the dreams they had before the war, and the ones they had given up. Nathan flew to Montana 6 weeks after the memorial service. Elena met him at the small airport. They drove to her cabin in comfortable silence. The landscape was stunning, mountains and forests and sky that seemed to go on forever. The kind of place where you could disappear completely if you wanted to. The cabin was small, functional, exactly what Nathan expected. 1 bedroom, a main room with a fireplace, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. There was a gun safe in the corner. Military neatness in the way everything was organized. No decoration, except a single photograph on the shelf above the fireplace. Nathan picked up the photograph. A younger Elena in Marine Corps uniform, standing with another Marine, both of them grinning at the camera. The easy confidence of people who thought they could not be hurt. My partner, Elena said quietly, the one who died in the helicopter crash. We did 3 missions together. He was the only person who knew everything about me, and I was the only person who knew everything about him. When he died, I lost the last person who understood. Until now, Nathan said. Until now, Elena agreed. That visit became the first of many. Nathan would fly to Montana whenever he had time off. Elena would sometimes make the trip to San Diego, though she always seemed uncomfortable in California. She preferred the quiet of her mountains to the crowds and noise of the coast. They did not rush into anything. Both of them had been hurt before by marriages that could not survive the weight of secrets and missions, by relationships that fell apart under the strain of what they could not say. They took their time, learning each other slowly, building trust the way they had built everything else in their lives, carefully, with full awareness that mistakes had consequences. 6 months in, Nathan asked Elena to teach him long-range shooting. They drove to a private shooting range 3 hours from her cabin, a place where they could practice without questions or people watching. Elena set up targets at distances that seemed impossible. Then she showed Nathan the math that made them achievable. Nathan was a good shooter, trained to hit targets at distances typical for close combat. But watching Elena work was like watching an artist. She read wind like language, made up for things he did not know existed, made shots that went against every idea he had about what rifles could do. You are natural, Nathan said after she hit a target at 1,400 meters. First shot. No such thing, Elena replied. This is 10,000 hours of practice. Natural talent might get you to 600 meters. Everything passed at his work. A year after they met, Nathan was offered promotion to captain. It would require him to move to Virginia for a job at the Pentagon. Good for his career. Terrible for seeing Elena. He turned it down without thinking twice. He accepted instead a sideways move that kept him in California. When he told Elena what he had done, she was quiet for a long time. You should not have done that, she finally said. That promotion was important. You are more important, Nathan replied. Nathan, I spent 5 years looking for you. Elena, I am not walking away now. Not for a job. Not for anything. Elena had kissed him then, fierce and unexpected. And for the first time since they met, Nathan saw tears in her eyes. I love you, she said. I do not know how to do this, and I am probably going to mess it up. But I love you. I love you too, Nathan replied. And we will figure out together. I thought about you, Nathan admitted. For 5 years, I wondered who you were, where you were, if you were alive. I thought about you too, Elena said quietly. I told myself it did not matter, that you were just another soldier I had helped, that saving you was no different than any other mission. But it was different, Nathan said. Yes, Elena agreed. I do not know why. Maybe because I saw you try to save your teammate. Maybe because I saw what you were willing to give up. Maybe because I recognized something in you that I had lost in myself. What was that? The belief that some things are worth dying for, Elena said. I had stopped believing that. I had been doing the work for so long that I forgot why it mattered. Then I saw you cover your teammate with your own body. And I remembered. Nathan reached across the table slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wanted. She did not. He took her hand. Her fingers were rough from years of holding a rifle. Her grip was strong. I am glad you are alive, he said. I am glad you are too, Elena replied. They left the bar together as the night got darker. Nathan walked her to her rental car, a plain sedan parked under a streetlight. They stood beside it for a moment. Neither one wanted the night to end. The air was cool, carrying the salt smell of the ocean a few blocks away. Cars passed sometimes, headlights sweeping across them before fading into the distance. Above, stars were visible despite the city lights. Familiar star patterns that both of them had used to find their way in different corners of the world. Are you staying in San Diego? Nathan asked. My flight back to Montana is tomorrow afternoon, Elena said. Montana? I should have guessed. Remote, quiet, good place to disappear. It serves its purpose, Elena replied, though lately it feels more like hiding than living. I know that feeling, Nathan said. My condo in Coronado is the same way. All the furniture is there, but it is not home, just a place to sleep between work. Do you think people like us get to have homes? Elena asked. Real ones. I mean, not just addresses. I used to think no, that we had traded that for the work. But lately I have been wondering if maybe we just have not found the right place yet. Or the right person, Nathan said quietly. Elena looked at him. She was watching him with those sharp eyes, judging, calculating, making decisions in real time. He recognized the expression. He had seen it in the mirror often enough. Can I see you before you leave? He asked. Elena hesitated again. Nathan could see the struggle in her eyes. The years of training telling her to walk away, to keep distance, to protect herself from getting attached. Then she nodded. Breakfast, 7 a.m, that diner on Orange Avenue. I will be there, Nathan promised. Elena got into her car. Before she closed the door, she looked up at him one more time. Nathan, she said, using his first name for the first time. Thank you for looking for me. Even though you never found me. I found you tonight, Nathan replied. Yes, Elena said softly. You did. She drove away. Nathan watched her taillights disappear into traffic. He stood there for a long time, feeling something he had not felt in years. Hope. 18 months later, on a cold December morning, Nathan Cross and Elena Reyes stood before a small gathering in a chapel overlooking the Pacific Ocean. No dress uniforms, no military honors, no flags or ceremonies. Just two people who had found each other in the aftermath of war, choosing to build something new from the wreckage of what they had survived. Bennett stood as Nathan's best man, his eyes wet despite his best efforts. Rodriguez attended with his family, walking with a cane, but walking. A handful of other soldiers were scattered through the seats, men who understood what this moment meant without needing explanation. Elena had no family to invite, no old friends, but her former handler had sent a card, and signed, with a single sentence written inside. Ghost deserved to be happy too. The ceremony was short. No fancy promises. No grand speeches. Just two people promising to stay. To try. To face whatever came next together, instead of alone. When the person leading the ceremony asked if Nathan took Elena to be his wife, he did not hesitate. I do, he said, his voice steady. When the same question was asked of Elena, she looked at Nathan for a long moment. He could see everything in her eyes. The years of being alone. The missions that had taken pieces of her soul. The fear that getting close to someone meant being weak. That love meant loss. Then she smiled, genuine and open, and said, I do. They kissed, not the dramatic Hollywood kiss of movies and stories. A kiss that tasted like relief. Like coming home after years of being lost. Like finding something you did not know you needed until it was finally yours. After the ceremony, Bennett pulled Nathan aside. You did it, he said. You found your ghost. She was never a ghost, Nathan replied. She was just waiting to be found. Morrison would have liked her, Bennett said quietly. He would have, Nathan agreed. Elena stood at the chapel window, looking out at the ocean. Nathan joined her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him, comfortable with the contact in a way that had taken months to develop. What are you thinking? He asked. That 5 years ago, I was lying in the dirt trying to keep you alive. And now we are here. Life is strange. It is, Nathan said. But I am glad for it, Elena agreed. I am glad I saved you that night. I am glad you never stopped looking. I would have looked forever, Nathan said. I know, Elena replied. That is why I stopped hiding. They stood together, watching the sun set over the Pacific. Two people who had survived impossible chances to find each other. The war was behind them. The missions were over. What lay ahead was uncertain, but they would face it together. Christmas came 6 days later. Nathan and Elena spent in Montana, in the cabin where she had lived alone for so long. They cooked dinner together, something neither of them was very good at, They sat by the fire and did not talk about the past. They planned a future instead. As midnight came close, Elena pulled Nathan outside. The snow was falling, thick and silent, covering the world in white. They stood in the clearing near the cabin, their breath visible in the cold air. 5 years ago tonight, I saved you, Elena said, and you have been saving me ever since. We save each other, Nathan replied. That is what this is. Elena kissed him as the snow fell around them. As Christmas Eve turned to Christmas morning, as the past finally gave way to the present, she had been a ghost for so long, invisible and alone, living in the spaces between missions where normal life could not reach. But standing there with Nathan, feeling his arms around her, his heart beating steady against her chest, Elena understood that ghosts could become real again, that legends could step out of stories and into life, that saving someone could mean being saved in return. The sniper who had disappeared into legend had finally come home, and Nathan Cross, the commander who had never stopped searching, had finally found what he was looking for. Not a ghost, not a legend, just a woman who had been brave enough to save him, and brave enough to let herself be saved in return.